Captain Sarah Chen stood at the bridge of the ESS Pathfinder, watching the holographic display as it rendered the aftermath of what could only be described as a massacre. Debris fields stretched across the sector, the remnants of what were once proud vessels of an unknown alien civilization. Multiple energy signatures detected, Captain. Lieutenant Rodriguez reported from his sensor station. They match nothing in our database. Sarah's jaw tightened as she studied the tactical overlay. The Pathfinder had been mapping this sector when they detected the battle. Now, they faced humanity's first contact scenario in the middle of someone else's war. 3 vessels approaching from the debris field. Rodriguez continued. Configuration unknown. They're changing shape. The holographic display showed 3 obsidian masses, their surfaces rippling like liquid metal. They moved with an unsettling organic fluidity, leaving trails of darkness in their wake. Life signs? Sarah asked. Inconclusive. Their biology, if you can call it that, is completely alien. From another section of space, a different group of ships emerged. These were crystalline in structure, their geometric designs a stark contrast to the fluid darkness pursuing them. They were damaged, trailing streams of energy from multiple breaches. The crystalline ships are broadcasting. Communications Officer Park announced. It's a distress signal. Universal mathematical sequences, Captain. They're asking for help. Sarah felt the weight of history on her shoulders. The Pathfinder was an exploration vessel, but she was still armed with humanity's latest defensive technologies. The first contact protocols were clear. Observe and avoid interference. But those protocols had never anticipated finding an advanced civilization in the middle of what appeared to be a genocide. Multiple impacts detected on the crystalline vessels, Rodriguez reported. Their shields are failing. They won't last another 5 minutes. Sarah made her decision. Battle stations. Deploy the quantum shield array. Helm, put us between those crystalline ships and their attackers. The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency as alert klaxons sounded throughout the ship. The Pathfinder's engines flared to life, pushing the vessel into an intercept course. Broadcasting on all frequencies, Park announced. Universal greeting package and warning signals. The obsidian ships paused their attack, seemingly confused by the Pathfinder's intervention. Their surfaces rippled with increased intensity, and Sarah could almost feel their alien consciousness assessing this new variable. They're scanning us, Rodriguez reported. Their energy readings are spiking. Hold position, Sarah ordered. Let them make the first move. The standoff lasted for 30 seconds that felt like hours. Then the obsidian ships began to change, their forms elongating into sharp predatory shapes. Energy spike. Rodriguez shouted. There. The first attack came not as weapons fire, but as a wave of darkness that seemed to drink in light itself. It washed against the Pathfinder's quantum shields, which flared with brilliant geometric patterns. Shields holding, engineering reported. The quantum matrices are adapting to their attack pattern. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Human shield technology, based on probability manipulation, was proving its worth against alien weapons. Target their propulsion systems. Minimal force. Let's show them we can bite back. The Pathfinder's particle lance arrays powered up, firing precise bursts of energy that carved through space. The obsidian ships twisted to avoid the attacks, but their fluid movements made them predictable to the ship's targeting eye. Direct hits. Weapons reported. Their outer layer is regenerating, but they're pulling back. The obsidian ships retreated, their forms contracting into tight spheres before vanishing in bursts of dark energy. Sarah didn't relax. First blood had been drawn in humanity's first interstellar conflict, and she knew it wouldn't be the last time they saw these beings. Status of the crystalline vessels. They're stabilizing, Captain. We're receiving a new transmission. It's more complex now. I think they're trying to communicate directly. Sarah nodded. Open a channel. Let's introduce ourselves properly. She straightened her uniform. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth science ship Pathfinder. We come in peace, but we will defend ourselves and others from unprovoked aggression. The response came as a cascade of crystalline tones that the ship's AI quickly began to decrypt. As the translation emerged, Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. "They say they are the Luminary," Park translated, "and they warned that what we just encountered was only a scout group. The dark tide is coming, and now that we've intervened, humanity will need to choose: stand with them or face the void alone." Sarah looked at the damaged crystalline ships, their crews already working to repair their vessels. Humanity had just gained its first allies in space, but at what cost? As she prepared to contact Earth Command, she knew one thing for certain: the galaxy was a far darker place than anyone had imagined, and humanity's age of innocence had just ended. The holographic display in the Pathfinder's conference room cast an ethereal glow over the assembled representatives. Captain Chen sat across from Nexus Guide Iris, the luminary diplomat, whose crystalline form refracted light in mesmerizing patterns. 2 weeks had passed since the initial encounter, and the Pathfinder had become an impromptu embassy for humanity's first alliance. "Your quantum shield technology is unprecedented," Iris communicated, their thoughts translated by the ship's enhanced eye. "We fought the Void Hunters for centuries, yet never encountered defenses they couldn't eventually breach." Sarah leaned forward, studying the tactical data streaming between them. "It's based on probability manipulation. Rather than trying to block their attacks directly, we create a field of quantum uncertainties. Their weapons literally have to fight against the nature of reality itself." Fascinating. Iris's crystalline structure pulsed with what Sarah had learned to recognize as excitement. "We Luminary have always sought to channel and direct energy. The idea of making reality itself uncertain." They paused, their light patterns shifting. "Perhaps this is why the Void Hunters fear you already." "Fear us?" Sarah frowned. "We've had one skirmish, and in that single encounter you demonstrated technology they couldn't predict or counter. The Void Hunters consume knowledge, adapt to everything they encounter, but they cannot adapt to what they cannot understand." Lieutenant Rodriguez entered the conference room, his usual calm demeanor troubled. "Captain, we've decoded more of the data from the Void Hunter scout ships. You need to see this." The holographic display shifted, showing a vast network of dark energy signatures spreading across the sector. What had appeared to be random attacks were revealed as a carefully orchestrated pattern of expansion. "They're not just raiders," Rodriguez explained. "They're terraforming space itself. Every region they take over shows altered quantum signatures. They're changing the fundamental laws of physics to match their own nature." Iris's light dimmed noticeably. "Yes, this is why we cannot simply flee or hide. Eventually, they will remake all of space in their image. Everything that makes us what we are will become impossible in their altered reality." Sarah stood, pacing the conference room as she processed this information. "Then we need to hit them back. Not just defend, but actively restore these altered spaces." She turned to Iris. "Your people understand energy manipulation better than anyone, combined with our quantum technology." "Yes," Iris interrupted, their form brightening. "We could create restoration fields, but we would need to get close to their controlled space. Our ships cannot survive such an approach." "Then we'll modify them," Sarah stated firmly. "Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology. It's our ability to adapt and combine ideas in new ways. Your ships, our shields. Your energy manipulation, our quantum uncertainty principles." The next few days saw the Pathfinder transformed into a joint research and development facility. Human engineers worked alongside luminary energy shapers, their different approaches to problem-solving, creating initially chaotic but increasingly promising results. Dr. Maya Singh, the Pathfinder's chief engineer, emerged from another marathon session with her luminary counterparts, her eyes bright with excitement despite her exhaustion. "Captain, we've done it. We've found a way to integrate quantum shield matrices into the luminary crystal lattice structures. Their ships won't just be defended. They'll be able to actively disrupt the Void Hunters' reality alterations. But the Void Hunters weren't idle. Long-range sensors detected increasing activity in their controlled space. They were gathering, preparing, perhaps even evolving in response to this new threat to their expansion. They're learning, Eris observed, studying the sensor data. But they're learning what we want them to learn. They see our ships being modified, so they adapt to fight ships. They don't realize we're preparing to fight their very essence. Sarah nodded, understanding the strategy. We're letting them think this is a conventional war, while we prepare to attack the foundations of their power. She pulled up a star chart, highlighting key tactical positions. We'll need to coordinate our fleets. The Pathfinder can serve as a command and control center, but we'll need your fastest ships for the actual incursions. Agreed. Iris's form pulsed with determination. We've already begun modifying our swift ships with your quantum matrices. But Captain, their light patterns shifted to what Sarah now recognized as concern. You should know that my people are divided on this alliance. Some believe that involving humans will only bring more suffering to your species. Sarah smiled grimly. With respect, that decision was made the moment we saw your ships under attack. Humanity won't sit idle while sentient beings are being erased from existence. We're stubborn that way. As if to emphasize her point, a priority transmission from Earth Command appeared on the main display. Sarah's expression remained neutral as she read it, but her posture straightened slightly. Earth has officially recognized the state of war with the Void Hunters, she announced. The first battle fleet will arrive within the week. Seems humanity has made its choice. Iris's crystalline form emanated patterns of surprise and what might have been hope. Your people would commit to war so quickly. Not quickly, Sarah corrected. We simply recognize that some fights can't be avoided, only prepared for. And we've learned through our own history that the sooner you face such threats, the better your chances. The conference room fell silent as both human and luminary contemplated what was to come. Through the viewport, space itself seemed to darken, as if aware of the gathering storm. The true test of their alliance was about to begin, and the fate of both their species would depend on how well they could combine their strengths against an enemy that threatened not just their lives, but the very nature of reality itself. The void between stars rippled like disturbed water. Where once there had been empty space, darkness began to coalesce into shapes that denied the basic laws of physics. The Void Hunters had arrived in force, and they had evolved. From the bridge of the ESS Pathfinder, Captain Chen watched as the enemy fleet emerged. The tactical display struggled to maintain lock on the constantly shifting forms. What had once been simple geometric shapes were now impossibly complex structures that seemed to exist in more dimensions than space allowed. Multiple quantum distortions detected, Rodriguez reported, his voice tight. They're not just moving through space anymore, they're warping it. The combined human luminary defense fleet held position at the edge of the cerulean sector. 20 Earth ships, their hulls bristling with quantum lance arrays, formed the core of the battle group. Around them, 50 luminary vessels glittered like stars, their crystal matrices humming with modified shield frequencies. Energy spike. The warning came too late. The first attack didn't come as weapons fire or physical projectiles. Instead, a wave of altered space washed over the fleet. Reality itself seemed to stutter, fundamental constants shifting like sand in a storm. Several luminary ships flickered, their crystal structures struggling to maintain coherence in the changing physics. Quantum anchors holding, Dr. Singh reported from engineering. Our reality bubble is stable, transferring excess power to the luminary vessels. The human ship's quantum shield technology proved its worth, creating pockets of stable space-time that extended to protect their allies. But the Void Hunters had only begun their assault. The enemy fleet split into 3 distinct groups, their forms rippling with predatory grace. The largest group, comprised of massive whale-like structures, began generating what looked like tears in the fabric of space. From these wounds, smaller hunter forms poured forth, their surfaces covered in what appeared to be organic weapons. "They're attempting to flank us through subspace," Iris observed from their station on the bridge. The luminary diplomat had insisted on remaining aboard the Pathfinder, their crystalline form now integrated with the ship's tactical systems. "These are not the same beings we fought before. They've evolved." Sarah studied the tactical display, her mind racing through options. The Void Hunters had clearly adapted to both human and luminary technology, developing counters to their previous strategies. But in doing so, they'd revealed something crucial. "They're afraid," she realized aloud. "Look at how they're attacking. They're trying to overwhelm us quickly, before we can adapt. They've learned that we're unpredictable, and it terrifies them." "Coming about to face the primary attack group," Helm reported. "Quantum lance arrays at full charge." The battle erupted in earnest. The Void Hunters' new forms proved devastating, their weapons not just destroying ships, but erasing sections of spacetime itself. 3 luminary vessels vanished into suddenly created temporal voids. An Earth destroyer, the ESS Tianji, had its rear section quantum sheared away, the cut so clean it left the front half still operational and fighting. But humanity had learned from their previous encounter. The fleet's formation wasn't just tactical, it was mathematical. Each ship's position had been calculated to create overlapping fields of quantum uncertainty, making it impossible for the Void Hunters to predict exactly where their targets would be at any given moment. "Pattern Omega," Sarah commanded. "All ships execute on my mark." The human luminary fleet began to move in what appeared to be random directions, but was actually a precisely choreographed dance of probability. Ships seemed to blink in and out of existence as quantum shields manipulated local reality. The Void Hunters' attacks, dependent on predictable physical laws, began to miss more often than they hit. "Their adaptation algorithms are failing," Iris announced, their crystalline form pulsing with excitement. "They cannot predict what they cannot understand." But the Void Hunters had one more surprise. The whale-like command ships suddenly began to merge, their dark masses flowing together into a singular entity that dwarfed anything in the Ally fleet. Its surface rippled with countless weapon arrays, each one designed to tear apart a different aspect of reality. "All ships, brace for impact." Sarah's warning came just as the merged entity released its attack, a wave of pure entropy that began to unravel the very structure of space around it. The Pathfinder's quantum shields flared as they fought against the fundamental dissolution of reality itself. Throughout the ship, crew members felt the strange sensation of existing in multiple states at once as probability fields fluctuated wildly. "Shields at critical." Singh's voice crackled through increasingly unstable communications. "We can't maintain quantum coherence against this level of entropy." Sarah watched as the massive void entity began to press its advantage, its attack threatening to unravel not just their ships, but the very laws of physics that allowed them to exist. They needed something unprecedented, something the Void Hunters couldn't possibly predict, because it had never been done before. "Iris," she turned to the luminary diplomat, "you said your crystals can channel energy in ways we never imagined. What if we channeled pure quantum uncertainty itself?" Iris's form flickered as they processed the idea. "You mean, use our crystal matrices to amplify your quantum fields? The energy requirements would be—" "We'll give you everything we've got," Sarah interrupted. "Every joule of power from every human ship. Can your crystals handle it?" "It has never been attempted," Iris admitted. "But then, that is what makes it perfect, isn't it?" The next few minutes would either mark the beginning of humanity's greatest victory or its final defeat. As Sarah gave the orders to implement their desperate plan, she couldn't help but appreciate the irony. In facing an enemy that consumed and adapted to all knowledge, humanity's greatest weapon had become the unknown itself. "Divert all power to the luminary crystal matrices," Sarah's command cut through the chaos on the bridge. "Everything except life support and minimal maneuvering thrusters." The Pathfinder systems responded immediately, power conduits pulsing as they channeled energy into the newly installed crystal arrays. Throughout the fleet, other human vessels did the same, their quantum shield generators working overtime to feed power into their ally ships. The luminary vessels began to glow with unprecedented intensity, their crystalline structures humming at frequencies that made reality itself shiver. Iris's form pulsed rapidly as they coordinated with their fellow luminary. The crystals are at 200% of their rated capacity, they reported. 300%, 400%. We've never channeled this much energy before. The massive Void Hunter entity continued its entropy wave attack, space-time unraveling around the fleet. But something unexpected was happening where the quantum-charged crystal energy met the entropic field. Reality wasn't just holding stable, it was beginning to fluctuate in patterns even the ship's sensors couldn't comprehend. Multiple quantum state violations detected, Rodriguez announced, his voice filled with wonder. The crystal matrices aren't just channeling the energy, they're amplifying the quantum uncertainty itself. Dr. Singh's voice crackled over the comm. Captain, the luminary crystals are acting as probability amplifiers. They're taking our quantum field fluctuations and multiplying them exponentially. We're not just creating uncertainty anymore. We're generating whole new possibilities. Sarah watched as the space around them began to shimmer with potential. The Void Hunter entity seemed to pause in its attack, its surface rippling with what might have been confusion. For beings that survived by consuming and adapting to knowledge, this demonstration of pure, amplified uncertainty was like a blind spot in their consciousness. Now, Sarah ordered, all ships release quantum pulse on my mark. The combined human luminary fleet moved in perfect synchronization. Human vessels projected their quantum fields through the supercharged crystal matrices of their allies. The result was beyond anything they had predicted. A wave of pure probability exploded outward, each point in space suddenly existing in multiple states simultaneously. The Void Hunter entity tried to adapt, its surface flowing like liquid darkness as it attempted to match the quantum fluctuations. But there was nothing concrete to adapt to. The attack wasn't just uncertain, it was uncertainty itself weaponized. The entity is losing coherence, Rodriguez reported. Its quantum structure is fragmenting. The massive void construct began to break apart, its carefully merged components unable to maintain unity in the face of infinite possibility. But as it separated, something even more remarkable happened. The smaller Void Hunter ships, instead of continuing their attack, began to exhibit signs of change. Energy signatures are shifting, Eris observed, their crystalline form pulsing with excitement. The quantum uncertainty, it's not just affecting their forms, it's affecting their very nature. Through the quantum haze, they watched as some of the Void Hunter ships began to transform. Their perfectly absorptive surfaces started to show hints of reflection, their rigid patterns of consumption and adaptation giving way to something new, a variation. They're evolving, Dr. Singh breathed. But not like before. We didn't just show them something new to adapt to. We showed them a new way to adapt. Sarah understood. By introducing quantum uncertainty at such a fundamental level, they hadn't just defeated the Void Hunters, they had forced them to confront the limitations of their own nature. Some had broken under the strain, but others were transcending their original programming. Captain, Iris's voice carried a note of awe. We're receiving transmissions from some of the transformed ships. They're asking for dialogue. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. They had come seeking to defend against an implacable enemy, only to find that the true battle wasn't against the Void Hunters, but against the limitations of fixed patterns and predictable responses. Open a channel, Sarah ordered. Let's see what happens when beings of pure adaptation learn to embrace uncertainty. As the first tentative communications began, Sarah reflected on the irony. Humanity's greatest contribution to this conflict hadn't been their technology or their weapons, but their fundamental nature, their ability to think beyond established patterns, to embrace chaos and uncertainty, and to find opportunity in the impossible. The quantum storm their combined forces had created continued to ripple through space, its effects reshaping not just the battlefield, but the very nature of their enemy. It was a victory, but more than that, it was a transformation. The war wasn't over, but its nature had fundamentally changed. In the hours that followed, as human and luminary scientists worked to understand what they had created, Sarah received a transmission from Earth Command. The message was brief but spoke volumes about humanity's role in the galaxy. Captain Chen, your actions have demonstrated that humanity's greatest weapon is not our technology, but our ability to imagine the impossible and make it real. Continue diplomatic efforts with transformed Void Hunter elements. The galaxy is changing, and we intend to help shape that change. As Sarah watched the transformed Void Hunter ships cautiously approaching for their first real dialogue, she knew that this was just the beginning. They had created something unprecedented, a future where adaptation meant more than just consuming knowledge, where uncertainty was not a weakness, but a strength, and where even the most rigid patterns could learn to embrace change. 1 month after the quantum storm that changed everything, the Pathfinder's conference room hosted an unprecedented gathering. Captain Sarah Chen sat at a table with representatives from 3 distinct species. Iris's crystalline form sparkled with anticipation, while beside them, a transformed Void Hunter delegate named Echo rippled with subtle iridescence, its once pure darkness now containing hints of light. The transformation continues. Echo communicated through the ship's enhanced translators. Those of us who embraced the change find ourselves evolving in ways we never imagined possible. We are learning to create rather than merely consume. Sarah studied the holographic displays showing the extent of these changes. Sectors of space that had once been darkened by Void Hunter influence were now showing signs of recovery. More remarkably, in regions where transformed hunters worked alongside luminary, entirely new phenomena were emerging. The quantum uncertainty principles you introduced, Echo continued, its surface shifting in what they had learned to recognize as excitement. They didn't just change our forms. They changed our fundamental nature. We're learning to exist in multiple states simultaneously, to embrace possibility rather than seeking to consume and control it. Not all of your kind have accepted this change, Iris pointed out, their crystalline structure pulsing with cautious optimism. The deep void faction continues to resist. Yes, Echo acknowledged, but they grow weaker as they cling to old patterns. They cannot adapt to what they refuse to understand. Dr. Singh entered the conference room, her eyes bright with the excitement of new discoveries. Captain, you need to see this. She activated a new holographic display, showing readings from the regions where transformed hunters and luminary worked together. The combination of quantum uncertainty and crystal energy manipulation isn't just restoring space, it's creating something entirely new. The display showed areas where reality itself seemed to be evolving, becoming richer and more complex. Physical laws weren't simply being restored to their original state. They were being enhanced, allowing for phenomena that neither humans nor their allies had thought possible. We call it quantum crystallization, Echo explained. Where once we sought to simplify reality by consuming it, we now help it grow more complex, more beautiful. The luminary teach us to channel energy, while your human quantum principles show us how to make that energy bloom with possibility. Sarah watched the data streams with a sense of wonder. What had begun as a desperate war for survival had transformed into something far more profound, the birth of a new way of existing in the universe. Earth Command is proposing the establishment of a permanent trilateral council, she announced, not just for defense, but for exploration and development. They believe that together, we represent something unprecedented in the galaxy, a convergence of order, chaos, and the human ability to bridge seemingly impossible gaps. There will be challenges, Iris noted. Many of my people still struggle to understand these changes. The idea of working alongside any form of Void Hunter, even transformed ones, creates deep anxiety. And some humans fear what we're becoming, Sarah acknowledged. The ability to manipulate reality at such fundamental levels makes many nervous. But that's exactly why we need to work together. Each of our species brings something vital to this equation. Echo's surface rippled thoughtfully. We bring understanding of change and adaptation. The luminary bring mastery of energy and structure, and humans. Humans bring imagination. Iris completed the thought. The ability to see past what is to what could be. Without that, none of this transformation would have been possible. The ship's AI interrupted with a priority alert. Long-range sensors had detected activity from the Deep Void faction. The holdouts were gathering for what might be their final assault. They think they can still win through force, Echo observed, its surface darkening slightly. They don't understand that they've already lost. The future belongs to those who can embrace new possibilities. Sarah stood, her expression determined. Then let's show them what that future looks like, not through weapons, but through demonstration. She turned to Dr. Singh. Can we adapt the quantum crystallization process into something more visible, more dramatic? The engineer's eyes lit up. The luminary crystals could act as amplifiers, and if we coordinate with the transformed hunters. She was already running calculations on her tablet. Make it happen, Sarah ordered. When they come expecting a battle, we'll give them a demonstration of creation instead. The next few days saw frantic preparation as the combined fleet assembled. But this time, they weren't preparing for combat. Instead, human quantum generators, luminary crystal matrices, and transformed hunter energy manipulators were being synchronized into something entirely new. When the Deep Void faction arrived, they found not a battle line, but a vast network of ships arranged in a complex geometric pattern. Before they could attack, the network activated. Space itself began to transform. Quantum uncertainty, channeled through crystal matrices and shaped by transformed hunter expertise, created a cascade of new realities. The void between stars filled with shifting patterns of light and energy, each more beautiful and complex than the last. The Deep Void ships paused, their attack formations wavering as they witnessed something their patterns of consumption and control couldn't comprehend. The spontaneous emergence of new forms of order from chaos. One by one, the attacking ships began to change. Some fled, their rigid patterns unable to cope with what they were seeing. Others began their own transformation, their darkness starting to shimmer with internal light. They're beginning to understand, Echo observed. You can't fight against the future. You can only choose to be part of it. As the last of the Deep Void faction either retreated or transformed, Sarah looked out at the transformed space before them. What had begun as a desperate battle for survival had become something far more profound, the beginning of a new chapter in the story of life in the galaxy. The quantum crystallization effect continued to spread, creating new possibilities wherever it touched. It was a perfect symbol of what their alliance had achieved. The combination of human imagination, luminary precision, and hunter adaptability, creating something greater than any of them could have achieved alone. So, Sarah asked, looking at her assembled allies, what shall we create next? The universe, it seemed, was waiting for their answer.